Hello, hope you're really well. So, this talk, in the theme of other talks done recently, um, essentially metaphysical, transcendental in life coaching. So, essentially, what we're talking about is how we can bring um, a wider aspect, a metaphysical aspect, we could call a spiritual aspect into the work we do as part of our world's evolution and how we can be best serving in this growth. And it seems that life coaching is an area where there are wonderful people involved, all of whom really awake and helping others through various different avenues and ways of working um, with others. So, what I'm wondering and want to kind of put forward is the idea that all of this amazing work that we can do and the amazing work, ways that we can help people, um, to what extent it has a common root, regardless of the work we're doing, in what in the Buddhist tradition would be called non-self. And non-self means that the ego is actually an illusion and that we can come to see that. So is this an experience that many of us are having, um, where we can actually see that this structure that we clung to and caused so much difficulty and pain, really, and suffering generally, um, once it's released, then we can work in a much better way. Um, because if you look at life coaching, it's a very positive way of working with people, I think. And while there is an area within life coaching which is very positive, some people might say is a bit skewed in the sense that it focuses just on money. That's that I think that's unlikely to get us anywhere in some senses. Although, of course, a positive mental attitude and a focus on money, nothing wrong with that at all. Um, and certainly, it seems using opening this center, if you like, here, works on very well with numbers. And so it can certainly be the case, I would say as well, that we can experience that kind of um, linear path towards achieving and success. Absolutely brilliant. And of course, that is central to life coaching. However, there's the holistic aspect, and I don't think any of it will be successful without that. So, what is this holistic aspect? Um, we're saying really that the holistic aspect and the dissolving, if you like, of an egoic self are the central elements of that. And so I just want to talk about a couple of different routes that might happen. And if anybody's listening to this and you're interested, great to hear your thoughts and experiences. So meditation, um, I don't know about anybody else, but I, for years, looked into established religious paths as a means of growth, as a means of transcending, um, with the intention of experiencing that growth, and didn't for a long time. Didn't experience it, wanted to, but it seemed perhaps the catalyst wasn't there. Who knows exactly where that catalyst comes from? But you know, unspeakably grateful we must be. Um, there seems often to be a link between challenging, difficult times and growth. And that I think is a very common experience. So when we're facing real obstacles and challenges, it can serve as a catalyst. Now, I think that meditation can serve as part of that catalyst as well. And there are, for example, within the Buddhist tradition, um, wonderful life changing practices, such as the mindfulness of breathing. And the breath can serve as a wonderful vehicle alone, almost, um, or perhaps certainly, for experiencing real growth. And so I just really want to just focus on the breath, and on that exercise, the mindfulness of breathing, as a vehicle for real growth and something that maybe you might be able to use with your clients, um, and for anybody to use it to get an experience of joy, oneness, and humbly we could say that that breakdown of this false self that keeps us in bondage, essentially. So the mindfulness of breathing, one reason why it I think is so effective is that it enables us, perhaps one way we could describe it is that as an autonomic function, as in something that is so deeply ingrained into our nervous system. And if we look at our nervous system, that word to me used to have a connotation of sort of medical doctors, GP, standard practice, nervous system, biology. But I think nervous system is metaphysical, spiritual, um, deeply. It is, in a sense, the gathering of all faculties and functions of being human held within this kind of loose framework. Um, and we can't really describe it. And actually, it's quite intangible. We might think we can pinpoint it, but really not. We're trying to pinpoint an experience, aren't we? And if we look at the profound Buddhist understanding of shunyata, we can see that nothing really, when we really look at it, is tangible. It kind of shifts, and that's a wonderful thing. That can present fear to some extent, but then you can go beyond that. I humbly say, um, and with the mindfulness of breathing, it seems that we can reach such a deeper level of consciousness that there, right there, can occur an amazing thing or amazing things. And I think linked into that can be a dissolving of this construct that we have of an egoic self. And that might sound a bit alien or off putting, our egoic self. Really, just the perception of ourselves that can be so deeply held that we are separate from the universe. We have this concept. And when we can start to see it dissolving, it's almost as if, to the degree that we experience that dissolving, we can experience an integration with something much bigger and something which brings joy. Um, so that is a wonderful practice for that. And I think many people have experienced really profound things through the mindfulness of breathing. So essentially, it can reveal a huge amount to us. And with the practice, you'd simply allow the breath to go in and out, but of its own accord, in a sense, is the trick, or the part, or the challenge, or the instruction. It's the simple instruction is to allow your breath to come in and out naturally, as it would, as the breath comes in and out. And what you'll find when you start doing it is that very often we're imposing things on nature, which is essentially what we all are. And generally, what we're imposing is the cognitive thought processes, perception, which very often create us challenges, perhaps until we can see them in a better way, and feeling. And these thought and feeling essentially are the two ingredients of emotion, because thought and feeling really are the raw data. From them comes volition, an idea towards something, just an energy towards something, it emotes. And volition and emotion very closely related. So I think there's been a tendency in the world to see emotions, or perhaps just within our own growth, to see emotions as a slightly less accurate way. And I think that's a more accurate way, it would seem. And so as we engage in the mindfulness of breathing, we're able, what we notice is that it's quite challenging. It's very simple in effect. It's just remaining with the breath. But thoughts come, proliferations, identifications, whole structures where we've identified with things and created this false self, if you like. And the Buddha's teaching is very much on the illusion of this self. And so we can, as we start to stay with the breath, we're likely to go into deeper states of consciousness. And what happens is it's like the peeling of the onion, which you hear in therapeutic therapist terms and counseling terms, and in many growth areas and people working with growth, or anybody that's experienced it, is that layers of self, and generally that layers of self are defensive, protective mechanisms of the ego. And when we can see that that's not us, we can start experiencing real joy. It seems very much that if we try and structuralize, that's a recipe for not enjoying life. And it may be possible to see that right on, a trajectory of really challenging to really joyful. There's a link there between our tendency to try and section off experience within life. So as we stay with the breath, it generally allows us to go much deeper. And as we say, it's an autonomic process, and it's held deeply within our nervous system, isn't it? Within our psyche, within our nervous system, within our being, the breath. I mean, it really is something that often is far beyond the conscious states. But we can get really close to that. What happens when we get close to that is we discover that everything that we've held about ourselves, well, there's a lot of illusions apart from the wonderful things. And I don't mean the wonderful things in an egoic sense. I just mean that, we start to realize the wonderful nature of being. And so if you're in a situation where you're starting to feel, you feel constriction, contraction, not enjoying, suffering, challenge is good, but there's as a catalyst, and as a healthy side, that can be wonderful and great. But that contracted kind of existence where it's really, not enjoyable. Then this could be a very, very useful mechanism, very useful practice for you, because as you go deeper into the practice, you go through layers of consciousness, and you get to a level where you just are, and it's a very, it can be certainly a life-changing experience. And again, one of the amazing things about that is if you've got little stuff going on in your unconscious, which are hang ups or baggage or anything like that, it ultimately always reveals them to be false because the only thing in the universe actually that's true is love. And we have to realize that. And that is, a spiritual realization. And what we're trying to talk about is, as helpers, is how we can facilitate that shift in others. And as helpers, how we can um, be part of that chain of release because everything has a knock-on effect. We don't need to do it for the money. I mean, a great thing, again, there's a positive mindset, which is really cool. But at the same time, we don't need to get bound by that or be caught up in that because we're not really doing anything in that case. The egoic structure is the falsehood ultimately. Ultimately, we are beyond the body. Um, ultimately, we simply are. Ultimately, we are. And that's our being. And the mindfulness of breathing is one key, is an amazing vehicle to experience that growth. And again, generally, what's happening, if we start to identify with little things on an egoic level, we'll probably start to build up little, ultimately, false beliefs. Oh, we prefer it to be like this about us. And it will always bind us because we aren't that. We are the unlimited being that is. So, mindfulness of breathing, wonderful vehicle, and really recommend that to anybody who wants to go deeper and just experience joy. Everything that, all those little things held within inside will be released. It certainly can be released with just a bit of gentle persistence with that exercise. And I'm sure there are many more. So if anybody's interested, please share any ways you have of doing this, where you've had success, and how, as a life coaching global network, essentially, we can be part of a transition to help people with joy. It doesn't matter what religion people are from, it doesn't matter any of this stuff because we know that ultimately the experience of being is intrinsically joyful. Um, and so that's what we want to get towards, um, experiencing and sharing as much as we can. So thanks very much for listening. And if you want to know any more about the mindfulness of breathing, for example, also, just add a comment and ask. No problem. I'll get back to you.